A live look at the nation's capital on this Thursday morning. Prime Minister Carney is set to take off next hour on a 9-day trade mission. Carney is set to visit Australia and Japan after his first stop in India. However, it's the government's downplaying of the ongoing threat of foreign interference and transnational repression from India that's raising questions this morning. Officials are saying Canada has been engaging with what they called robust and mature discussions at all levels with the Indian government and are confident Canada has the necessary safeguards in place to avoid foreign interference from India. This view is in stark contrast to repeated warnings from the RCMP and CSIS over the last couple of years that India is one of the main perpetrators of foreign interference and espionage in Canada. The World Sikh Organization of Canada says it categorically rejects claims that India is no longer linked to violent crimes and transnational repression in India. So for more on this, let's bring in CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. Tom, thanks so much. After
Good to be with you, Scott.
Of mistrust between Canada and India, are you surprised by this reset?
No, I'm not, because Mark Carney has made it his top priority to develop new trade routes and trade relations around the world. India is one of the largest economies in the world, and it would have been a very bad thing for our economy for us to stay on the sidelines in our relationships with India. But as you point out, a little bit like China, when the issues of human rights always arrive in these discussions, the allegation by Canada that the Indian government was involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil, of course, was extremely grave. Now, the fact that Mr. Trudeau chose to raise that on the first day of a return of the House of Commons and blew it all up rather than doing like the Americans did when they found something similar in terms of behavior from India and dealt with it, we allowed this thing to expand and get out of control and really hurt things. Similarly, with regard to China, again, Mr. Trudeau scolded Chinese President Xi in public, and then his team boasted about it. That's not a good way to conduct foreign relations. So I think that what Carney's showing is a lot of maturity, a lot of poise. He understands that it is a very serious thing to make sure that foreign countries, whichever country it is, are not involved in Canadian affairs. I noticed that there was a very senior American politician sticking his nose in the threat of a separation referendum in Alberta. So, I mean, these threats can come from anywhere, and Canada just has to be prepared to deal with them. But the top line is Mark Carney's doing what he said. He's expanding our ability to trade with countries other than the United States, because the Americans, of course, have proven themselves to be a totally unreliable partner.
But as you pointed out, there were serious accusations from the previous Liberal government and warnings from multiple Canadian law enforcement groups. So how will the Prime Minister navigate the issues of foreign interference and espionage from the Indian government and balance the legitimate concerns that have been pointed out?
You know, these things sometimes take time, and the way the hand is held out and the way you deal with them can sometimes help produce a positive result. And nobody likes to be scolded publicly. Take, for example, the case of a Hong Kong dissident who had been sentenced to 20 years. That decision was just reversed by the Court of Appeal in China. And so that is, for me, an indication, because, of course, you know, the question can be asked, is the court system entirely disconnected from the Chinese Communist Party that runs everything in China? I think the answer has to be no. So that is a strong signal by the Chinese government that the message is getting through on human rights. But it's not because of scolding in public, it's because of quiet diplomacy and discussions. So too with India, which took very badly. I mean, I did any number of interviews on Indian television after Mr. Trudeau did that, and I can tell you it was an explosion of rage. And it turns out that factually, Mr. Trudeau was not wrong, but it was how he handled it, how it was dealt with. So I think that this is where the strength of Mark Carney comes in. When he walks into a room, Scott, everybody in the world, no matter what capital he's in, knows who Mark Carney is. That's a major advantage for Canada in trying to get these new trade routes developed and these new trade deals with important economic partners like India, which, it should be recalled, is a democracy, the largest democracy in the world. So yes, despite the clear failings in a case like the one we talked to, and the warnings from the Sikh community are valid, at the same time, Canada is right to put its efforts in developing better relationships with India rather than finger pointing and doing what was done in the past.
CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. Tom, always appreciate your time on this. Thanks so much.
Good to be with you, Scott.